Alright, I just really wanted to show y'all real quick. As y'all could see, it's a 98.5% accuracy. This is against a 1200 bot. See, game rating 1200. It says we played 1650. Says opening and middle game were both brilliant, 97, 99 point accuracy. So we pretty much played a perfect game. You can see the evaluation bar. It just completely drops and drops and drops and drops and drops. And you see we get the mate. So, ooh, sorry about that. I don't have the lo-fi in the background. Well, I could put it real quick. That shouldn't be too bad. And I want to make sure I talk a little bit more clear just in case. So, we're going to get back into it. We're going to go to where we left off at. And you guys seen all of this already. We end up bringing the bishop down. I don't know if I was seeing the engine in the last video. I was seeing that it said no games was found on it. I don't know how true that was or not, but either way, we find f8 and we want to study this line more. The finding all from here on after this, like obviously the queen can play different, and then obviously in the opening, white can play anything they want, and I do not recommend as far as watching this and just trying to put all your eggs in one basket and watching this little defensive opening and trying to just immediately, you know, go and think that you're gonna just win games. Obviously, there's gonna be so much different variants and so much different tactics that they can be played, and even just alone playing this move, it's not mandatory. You know, you still have this one. It says it's inaccuracy, but you know, being under 1,000, or even just like 600, 500, 400 on a normal game, nobody's gonna really fault you, you know, for doing that. Um, I really would never trade on this. I wouldn't know why anybody would. Um, but yeah. So once the queen takes, and obviously the queen doesn't even have to take. Like there's just so much different things, but we're just gonna practice just whatever game that we end up finding and that we end up playing. And from here, the queen takes the pawn. Obviously, you guys know the line. The bishop goes down to f8. The queen goes back. The queen goes back to e3. From here, we end up advancing our c5 pawn. They end up taking. We take back. They move the queen. Now, obviously, like I said, even here, it doesn't mean that in a real game that just because you end up finding this tactic that the person's gonna play d3. You know, there's so much different squares that they can go to, but for the chance that they do play d3, at least we will know how to completely, you know, take an advantage over this type of position. You know, I don't really know. Either way, we could, like I said, we will still practice, but that we're not here to continue to find other lines. We're here to, you know, watch and study the game that we played and to continue to learn from it. So if the queen moves to d3, the knight can go to b4. Now this is dangerous because, for one, this pawn is protecting this. Their pawn is attacking our pawn, and right now this pawn is technically undefended. Well, like, not undefended. The bishop is here, but this pawn is like isolated right now. It's by itself. It doesn't really have too much help, but it is protecting the knight. He can't afford to waste a tempo taken because obviously we take, so that's not something that we have to worry about. Here he has a lot of different moves that he could still be able to move his queen to, but he ends up just taking her pawn, which it makes sense. You still want to protect this white pawn, because if not, we're gonna end up taking, and it just looks like the pawn is free, right? Which a lot of people will probably see. And then from here we just take the rook and we lift it up. The queen goes back, it goes back to the center. It looks like everything is okay. But from here, all we do is just take a pawn back. They move because obviously this pawn that we take and is now on d4, it's attacking their knight, and they decide to end up going and bringing their knight to the e file. Obviously, once again, I just want to claim that none of these moves mean that it's going to be played, but at least it gives us an idea of what we're looking for. Like, even in this point right here, when the queen goes back, what is our ideas and what is our threats? Because it doesn't mean that we're focusing on remembering these specific moves. We're just trying to remember our ideas. Our two main ideas right now is getting this knight in here, right? Breaking their castling rights, right? Forcing their king to stay in the center as much as possible, and having the queen and the king on the same file on the e file. Now our king is still on the e file, but at least we have some type of pawn control, right? And we still have a pawn right here. It is loose, but right now currently we still are up a tempo, so we're not too worried about it. But because we are up a tempo and we can create a pass pawn, right, we could continue to we can continue to advance our pawns and then still be able to remain to hold structure and get more defense on it. Is just simply just taking. You see, I know it probably looks confusing because there's been a lot of shifts, but if you take a second to slow down and just look at the position for what it is, all you will notice is his pawns are still on the second rank. He has one isolated pawn, right? I have 2 pawns, 3 pawns on my 7th rank. One of them is isolated on the F file, right? I have one isolated. Let me unclear these ones. Okay, but that was easier. I have one isolated right here on the F file, but I have a pawn structure, right? I have a potential pawn structure, right? Um, and once I continue to develop, however that may look, right? However my development may look, I still have castling rights. I would still have castling rights. And once I do take, right, now we have 3 pawns that are able to connect again, right? We still have a defensive bishop. We still have a very defensive white bishop and a very defensive black bishop, but their bishop is also very defensive. And we have a pawn structure protecting our, lower half of our center. I would consider this our upper half of our center, and then I would consider this our lower half, right? This is the 5th rank for black. That's the top rank. Obviously, it's protecting up here, right? That's the upper half. And the reason why I say upper is because your pawns start on the 7th. So if we are looking at center control, and if we was looking in long file rank, which is why I talk about the queen and the king being on their same file, is because we want to always remain, we always want to focus on having a stabilized structure no matter what. Even though there might be gaps, we might have weaknesses around, but we always want to have a centered, focused, controlled, you know, type of structure, pawn structure. So, and then plus this rook, it still has the G and the H file completely locked pretty much. So this queen, it really can't infiltrate, and especially like it's by itself right now. The bishop right here, I don't really see like the bishop really doing anything too much. And then even if like it did want to like attack our queen or something with a knight and maybe bishop attack, like it's just like so slow. And like I said, there's just a lot of pressure going on, and there's a lot of pressure going on in the queen side of the board, especially once we continue our development as well. There's just too much going on that black would have to focus on, especially with our threat that we want to focus on. So from here, let's go back to the game. We just take, right? We see our different ideas. We see what the stuff we want to focus on. But we go back once we have all our ideas and information collected. And maybe there's stuff that I'm still missing, but this is what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking about while I'm playing the game. So once I collected all that, I go back and focus onto my main, goal is advancing the pawn. We have our queen protected. We have a threat here. And then they just end up making a mistake. Once again, we're threatening, even though they have a pawn that is attacking, and even though their queen is also attacking, we have a knight and a queen protecting. And look at how close we are already in their side of the board. We are already in their third rank. Like, if you look at it and you think about it, like, just imagine if maybe right here, you have all these players, and then obviously, like, let's say the king in the first rank, right? Let's say this is the end zone, and if the first rank is the end zone, think of the third and the fourth rank, right, as your red zone, right? Think of it as your red zone. Boom. Now let's say if right now currently we are in the red zone, and let's say we just passed, right? Boom. Let's say they had the ball right here. Boom. Let's say we make a play and I did a little trap, right? Let's say this was a little trap. Boom. Let's say their O line tries to break through and we end up tackling, whatever. Let's say they get possession again, and in their let's say they get possession, in their possession they end up fumbling again, and we get a better position, right? Now it's their turn again, and it may look like they was almost about to score, but let's say they fumble, right? And now they fumble, and we do, let's say they fumble right here, and we just drive for the end zone, right? So they fumble, boom, we get the recovery. They're chasing back, they're trying to protect, they're trying to get back to safety, and we just start driving for the end zone, right? Like a little cut, whatever, and now boom, this guy ends up getting juked, right? Now we still have this guy, he's still with us, and we have somebody over here trying to get after us, but he gets juked, and he ends up getting crossed all the way over, right? So we do that, and we still see this guy, right? We still see this one, and so we have to make sure that we don't get, tackled up. We still got a defender here, we got a defender here, and this guy just got juked. So what do? Instead of trying to do extra fancy crossovers or try to do some side steps or whatever, or do more spins, we just continue straight down. Just full throttle, just straight, just explosiveness, just continue. Then, he moves again. He's, just assuming that he has his partners or whatever. He's already out the game. He's been snubbled up. And so one of our linebackers just ends up folding him from the back. This poor horse had gotten destroyed, bro. Like, we completely ended up destroying just the whole center of the board. Like, we took so much control. We're in the end zone, and we literally just blitzed down. Like, we just stormed through, right? From here, whatever, maybe they take a little stop, right? Next possession, now let's say we're 1st and 10 on the end zone. Boom. Just a massive play, right? They come to try to defend their one last stop, and we just take out one of their players, right? Maybe injury. Now it's 2nd and 10. Maybe not even 2nd and 10. Or yeah, let's say 2nd and 10 because we still have our goal right. Our football is right here, right? Our football is still, you know what I mean? They didn't pass an inch. So boom. From here, he tries taking or blocking or whatever he does, and we just secure our position. From here, we give a check. The king moves. I don't know how many different options the king got, so let's see. King could go here. That's one option. Here, no. Option number 2. Here, no. Option number 3. Option number 4. King has 4 options to go. He decides to go to D3. Not a very good option. From here, we take out our other knight. We just develop it to C6. They want to trade. But instead of trading, oh my God, we just find such a clean, nice check. And I can understand why they would want to take, the rook is, the rook is here. They really haven't been able to have any type of advantage. I'm sure they don't want the rook to start getting more involved or start threatening. Plus, they still haven't really been able to, develop. So whatever their reasoning is why they took, and even if they didn't take this right here, this move, oh my God, it's so clean. So he does take my rook anyways. Not like he has much options. And oh my God, bishop to B4 check is such a clean, nice move. King goes down to C4. Oh my God. Just to top it all off, the rook slide to D8. My friends, I would consider this checkmate. I just want you guys to see, we're going to continue to learn more variations and more ideas into these variations. And, I want you guys to stay tuned. I want to just be able to grow. I want to learn. I want to have fun with this. I don't want it to just be focused on games and games and games. And yeah, we could review our games and everything, but I want to just have a general basis idea. Like, I want to actually learn what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And, track my mindset and my thought process. If you guys have any inputs, you guys see anything while we're going through this which can be a better idea, you guys can take it and hopefully we could share it together. And if not, if we ever get to play and maybe I have an ideas and I think that I found the perfect move sets and tactics and everything like that, and it still gets broken down, I still want to I want to figure out what I can do to improve and share with y'all. We can all, just continue to just grow and love the French. But nonetheless, wow, just look at this. This pawn is being protected by the knight. This square is being protected by the bishop. This knight is being protected by the pawn, and this knight is being protected by the knight. This is being protected by two pieces. Look at this. Two pieces, right? And this is obviously being threatened by our check. This square is being protected by here. The king cannot move up to c4 because of this pawn. It's like, wow. Look at all of his pieces. All of his pawns. They're all sitting in the back ring. He has 5 pawns and he has 4 pieces, all still in his half of the board. Now, don't get me wrong, I still have 1 rook, 1 knight that's below, more towards our, side of our base. And I still have 2 pawns that did not move from their beginning position. But just look at the symmetry. Just look at the control. It's just how everything is being protected is crazy. It's literally like a yin and yang. Well, if you guys enjoyed this, I hope you guys learned something. This was a almost 100% rated game. 98.5%. 2 brilliants, 3 greats. Let me go back. 2 brilliants, 3 greats, 5 bookmark moves, 10 best, 1 good, and 0 inaccuracy, mistakes, miss, and blunders. This was so fun to play, to mess around with. The chances of you getting into this real game, who knows? But if you ever come across the same type of, maybe the queen doesn't take, but maybe the queen stays on the white file, or just so many different things, or maybe the pawn doesn't exchange but continues to like develop instead. Obviously anybody can play differently, but as long as you understand what you're trying to do and why you're doing it, and even if you might blunder or have an inaccuracy, but to still remain focused on your game plan, and even if you have to shift and change how that plan looks, but still have a end goal, which is why it's called an end game, because you should have a goal to end the game, then little by little you'll start figuring it out. But we out here, man. It's John. I see y'all next time.